The day my own son looked at me and said, "Delete the evidence, Mom, or we will have to handle this legally," was the day I understood that the boy I raised and the man standing in front of me were two different people. And my name is Margaret Halley. I am 58 years old, and for more than 3 decades, I worked beside my late husband, Daniel Howe, to build our construction company from a folding table in our kitchen into a respected regional business worth millions. And I did not just help, I managed payroll, negotiated with suppliers, handled tax filings, read every contract line by line, stayed up past midnight correcting invoices. And when Daniel became the public face of the company, shaking hands at meetings, I was the silent engine behind every signed deal. And when he passed away 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack, the will clearly named me majority owner until I personally decided to transfer control. Something my son Eric Howell never truly accepted because in his mind, the company was already his inheritance, his right, his future title. And in the beginning, after Daniel's death, I leaned on Eric emotionally, trusting him more, bringing him deeper into operations, believing grief would unite us. But slowly, I noticed changes during our workdays. Small conversations that felt rehearsed, meetings scheduled without informing me, financial summaries printed instead of shared digitally. And one afternoon, while reviewing quarterly reports alone in my office, I saw unusual consulting payments totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred to a newly registered vendor account. And when I calmly called our longtime office manager, Linda, and asked who approved these transfers, she hesitated and said, "Eric told me you signed them," and I knew immediately I had not. But instead of confronting him emotionally, I did what I had always done best. I investigated quietly, staying late at the office, pretending to finalize budget forecasts while actually tracing transaction histories, downloading internal emails, printing bank confirmations, and comparing digital signatures. And what I found was not a misunderstanding, but a pattern. Nearly $500,000 transferred over 12 months to a shell company registered under my daughter-in-law's name, disguised as consulting and development fees. And I remember sitting there in the dim office light feeling a mix of nausea and clarity. Because betrayal by strangers is business, but betrayal by your child is something deeper, something that shakes your identity. And still I said nothing to him. Instead, I scheduled a private consultation with Patricia Lawson, a seasoned corporate attorney in her early 60s, known for handling financial misconduct cases. And in her quiet office filled with leather-bound law books, I laid out every document in chronological order, explaining each transaction calmly even as my voice trembled at times. And Patricia listened without interrupting before finally saying, "Margaret, this is structured embezzlement, and you have strong evidence." And hearing that word attached to my son made my chest tighten. But she reminded me that motherhood does not cancel ownership, and compassion does not require self-destruction. So together, we arranged a forensic audit without alerting Eric, secured mirrored backups of company servers, and prepared legal notices in advance. And meanwhile at work, Eric's tone toward me shifted. He became impatient in meetings, interrupting me in front of contractors, saying things like, "Mom doesn't need to worry about these technical details," attempting to reduce my authority gradually. And during one tense afternoon in his glass-walled office, he slid another authorization form toward me requesting urgent vendor payment approval and said casually, "Just sign this quickly. We're already behind schedule." And as I read the document, I recognized the same disguised account structure. And I looked up at him and asked evenly, "Why is this vendor registered under your wife's maiden name?" And for a split second, his confidence cracked before he replied, "It's just for tax flexibility, Mom. Don't overthink it." And that was when he added the sentence that ended any remaining doubt. "Delete the emails you sent to accounting, or this will get messy." And I remember placing the pen down slowly and responding, It's already messy, because what he did not know was that hours earlier, Patricia had formally filed notice, preserving all digital records and initiating legal review. And when the case moved to court months later, the experience was colder and quieter than television dramas portray. There were no shouting matches, only structured arguments, detailed financial charts projected on screens, forensic accountants explaining transaction trails step by step, Patricia presenting timelines that showed intentional diversion of company funds, and Eric's defense attempting to frame it as informal family authorization without written consent, which the judge quickly questioned, asking for documented approval that did not exist. And sitting there in that courtroom, I felt grief more than anger. Because winning legally meant losing something personally. Yet, when the ruling came down ordering full repayment with penalties and removing Eric from executive authority, I did not feel triumphant. I felt steady, grounded in the knowledge that protecting myself was not cruelty, but necessity. And after the case, I restructured the company with independent oversight, hired external financial controllers, established transparent governance policies, and slowly rebuilt stability. And at home, the silence between my son and me stretched painfully long. But I also discovered a deeper truth about myself, that at 58, I was not fragile, not outdated, not dependent. I had built the company's foundation with my own hands, and foundations are not easily erased. And if there is one thing I learned through those long months of quiet investigation, tense office conversations, legal preparation, and courtroom testimony, it is that strength is not loud rage, but patient clarity, not revenge, but boundaries. And when he told me to delete the evidence, he believed fear would guide me, but instead experience guided me, and I did not raise my voice. I did not create a scene. I simply ensured that the truth was documented, protected, and delivered to the right place. Because sometimes the most powerful response is not an argument, it is preparation. And I share this not as a story of destroying my child, but as a reminder to anyone watching that love should never require you to ignore betrayal, that age does not weaken intelligence, and that even after decades of being called just mom, I was, and always had been, the true architect of everything we built.